This week on Influence, you get 100% more mats at no additional charge. Hello, listeners and viewers, large and small. Welcome to Influence. It is me, Matt Silverman, and this is a podcast about something that I am obsessed with, internet creativity, as a person who makes his living from making stuff, weird stuff, hopefully funny and interesting stuff on the internet in a variety of ways. I've become very obsessed with internet creativity and the people who make a living, build a community, and build a social movement around the things that they are passionate about and they are excited about. I have two guests on this week's episode, which is rare for me, but you'll understand why they are together in one moment. They are, in internet terms, I'm going to call them legendary filmmakers. Okay, I don't know if they're going to quibble with that. We'll talk about it. If you've been watching YouTube as long as I have, and paying attention to internet culture as long as I have, you have definitely visited a supermarket far, far away when you discovered Chad Vader, day shift manager. And you may also know them more recently for their shockingly long-running, I discovered, series, Beer and Board Games, and of course, Welcome to the Basement. I am so excited to welcome Aaron, Yonda, and Matt Sloan, otherwise known as Blame Society, to the podcast. Welcome, guys.
Hi, Matt.
Yeah. Oh,
thank you.
We are filmed before a live studio audience. I hope that's okay with you guys.
You conceal them well.
They're in the back. Thank you for being part of the show. I have rediscovered your work and realized that I've been a big fan for so long, and I have recently resubscribed now in my modern YouTube life. And I like to kick off every interview with a question, which is like, when people, normal people, non-internet people, ask you what you do for a living, how do you explain it? What do you say?
Well, internet legend sounds pretty good.
Okay, great.
yeah.
I should
definitely.
use that more often.
You feel free to use it. Royalties will be marginal for me, but I will accept.
Yes, very, very low royalties for just speaking.
Internet mastermind also,
Okay.
maybe we could do that. But yeah, it depends on who you're talking to, I suppose. Like, most people nowadays, they'll get it. You can just say, hey, I'm a streamer, I'm a content creator.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess that is a word that works. I don't consider myself just a content creator because it seems like, I don't know, there's something sort of cynical about it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I guess at heart, Matt and I have always just been filmmakers, friends, and, we kind of just bring all that to the table.
Mm-hmm.
I like to make strangers think that I make more money than I actually do.
Yep. Okay. We'll get into that. Yep.
I often say web entrepreneur.
Oh, very nice.
Yes. There you go.
I like this. Now, my second bonus question that I ask all my guests is, parents, grandparents, older members of the family or friend circles, what do they think you do? If I ask them what you do for a living, what would they say?
Makes funny videos. Probably.
He's famous.
Okay.
Right.
That's what my mom would say.
Okay. Very nice. All right. So she gets it. So we're going to go back in time to talk about some of your claims to fame. But before we started recording, we were laughing because I said, hey, what do we want to talk about? And Matt said, like, well, we've answered the question, how did we meet, 10,000 times. But I do not know the answer. So you're both in Madison, Wisconsin now. I presume this is where you're from. And what was the beginning of all this?
We met doing improv comedy. From there, started doing video production, just locally. And it sort of took off from there. And when YouTube came around, that was a lot bigger platform to jump onto. So
I became interested in being friends with Matt when he would come to the improv show, and before we would go do the show, he would read a book.
Okay.
He would kind of sit in the corner and read his book.
This was a headspace. This was a prep.
I have never read a book.
Okay, fair enough. I listed this as a question. I'm a big fan of the Chicago improv scene and the podcasts that have emerged from that. Is that where you were, or is there a scene in Wisconsin too?
Just right here in Madison.
Okay.
There's kind of a thriving improv community.
I love it.
We tap a lot of those people to be in our shows, and it's there's lots of really talented local people.
Amazing. And this was thriving back in the early to mid 2000s as well. Sounds like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Nice. That's very cool. So getting to that, like, you have been making videos on the internet since 2006, perhaps earlier. You tell me.
Yeah, earlier than that. I would say maybe 2003, 2004. We were, and this goes into influences, which I think we'll talk about in a bit. But there was a video platform pre-YouTube called Channel 101.
I'm not familiar with it. I know Blip, but I do not know Channel 101.
Channel 101 started 2001, maybe 2002. Wow. And we got involved with that, and they work off of a network TV model where you make a pilot of a show that's 5 minutes long. They show it at their live screening, and if it gets enough votes, it gets picked up and you make another episode. If it doesn't get enough votes, it gets canceled, and then you go make something else.
When you say live screening, this is an in-person event or live on the internet?
Was an
in-person event in Los Angeles. It was run by Dan Harmon and Rob Schraub. Actually, it still exists. I don't know what exactly they're, if they are still a part of it. I think they might be in some way. But yeah, it was basically just like a place for, creative people to make videos, showcase them, try to get into the show. And nobody had gotten into Channel 101 from outside Los Angeles. It had just been sort of an insular thing. And then we submitted some stuff and eventually got in, and it started to take off a little bit. And that was actually Chad Vader. When we made that, we submitted it to Channel 101 first. Right. But you were talking about, our history of where we make videos and how long we've been doing it. I actually used to make public access TV show stuff in the 90s. And then Matt and I we continued that to some extent, but we also tried to turn our sketch comedy and stuff into a TV show.
Yeah. And I did public access in the 90s as well.
Yeah.
My college had a TV station. So.
Yep. I love that. So much of the early internet stuff, and especially the sketch comedy stuff that you guys were doing, has a public access feel that is so much fun to be nostalgic about and look back on. What was your motivation? Which is it's a stupid question. Like your motivation is to make movies and get them seen. But what were your influences at the time? And were you watching cable access? And were you watching other internet creators at the same time?
When I first started doing public access, I was just I just wanted to make crazy, insane, creative stuff. And it probably came out of, my love for, I'd say like Doctor Who, Monty Python, stuff like that. And then gradually as it went along, I wanted to test my abilities and, try to do more filmmakery type things. And that sort of progressed as we went along. And, I would say Matt and I were totally self-taught. We didn't have any training in any of it. But we did just get it from watching TV and movies, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, and definitely the Channel 101 aesthetic really was an influence too, because like the intention was to make something really good. It wasn't just to express yourself or mess around with a video camera. It was like make something that's well written, well shot, well acted, all that stuff. And I think that's what really drove us to make Chad Vader as TV like and as cinema like as possible.
Yes. Looking back at it, I remember watching it when it came out, or maybe a year or two after. But now looking back at it in preparation for this conversation, there is so much cinematic structure to it, and that you've answered a lot of my questions of like you are obsessed with movies and TV, and then you are mimicking the structures of those shows with what did you have? Whatever camera was laying around. Do you remember what you were shooting on and how you were recording audio and all this stuff? Like what was the tech like?
Probably. I think we started on like a mini DV tape. Was where we started?
GL1 or the GL2 Canon?
That sounds right. Yeah. I can't believe you remember that. Yeah. It was just
and it had a little tape that you'd put in. And
Yep. And for the kids listening, you had to play the tape in the camcorder in real time in order to capture it onto the computer. Yeah. You couldn't just move a file over. You had to like re-record it onto your PC to get the files, to get the footage off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we definitely, there was a spirit, and this was big at Channel 101, and also just even before we started doing stuff with Channel 101, there was this spirit of just creating something funny without worrying too much about if we had a budget to do it. So we would, we made a show called Super Shooter where it was a cop show, but we shot it in my kitchen, and Matt's character is the chief, and we're at the quarry. He says we're at the quarry. He's holding a rock, but he's standing in the kitchen, and that's the extent to which we worried about the set.
He's the super shooter.
Chief, I got a job for you. I need you to meet me at the quarry.
The quarry again.
That's right, the quarry.
The quarry. I'll be there.
Chief, Super Shooter. Thanks for meeting me here at the quarry.
You're making these things for Channel 101, but that to me sounds like a closed ecosystem. It's almost like a film festival where you're submitting it. If it does well, maybe it goes somewhere, but it's not for public consumption. And I guess one of my core questions about that time was like, internet video and internet content was not cinematic or professional. Were other people making movies for the internet at this time the way you were, or do you feel like you were among the first?
I think there were people doing it, definitely. Even back in the early 2000s, when they tried to do internet video, but there just wasn't enough bandwidth for it. People were making stuff. But I think our advantage, and one of the reasons we became successful, was that we were kind of on the scene right at the beginning before people knew that it was going to be a big deal.
Yes.
And we got kind of lucky with YouTube in that they featured some of our videos on their front page, which was something they did back in the beginning.
Right.
And that, and they were getting a lot of press. And I think we honestly helped them get a lot of press, just because of some of our content. And so because there wasn't this flood of people doing stuff yet, because nobody was really taking it seriously. I think that was a big step for us.
That's exactly what I'm getting at. Of like, we perceived YouTube to be, here's a cat video, here's a random thing from a camcorder family home movie, and it's just it's so trivial. And then I do remember seeing, here these guys are making Star Wars fan films. That is not something I've ever seen on the internet before, and so I'm just wondering, like, who else was doing it at the time, and I want to get into the production of Chad in a moment.
And there were people doing Star Wars fan films, but they were doing them for film festivals. They weren't doing them on the internet. So
interesting.
So I guess it was a new phenomenon in that sense, where it could be seen anywhere at any time.
Okay. So YouTube, the platform, hits 2005, but it's really doesn't become what it actually is, until a few years later. So it's Channel 101, 2005, 2006, and you made Chad Vader. in its current form for Channel 101? Like the video we see today is the one you submitted, or was there an earlier version?
No, the first episode was the first one that we submitted to Channel 101. We got picked up.
Yep.
All the LA hipsters didn't like that one bit because they thought making a Star Wars parody was dreadfully uncool.
Low art.
Right. And then we made a second episode and then we got canceled.
Okay. So
at that time, we were thinking, well, there's this new thing, YouTube. Let's upload it there and see what happens.
Yes. Okay. So this is 2006. And I just want to, for listeners who may not be familiar or don't remember or are not as old as I am, I want to play a clip here of the first episode of Chad Vader.
What is the meaning of this?
The meaning of what?
I ordered this task to be completed an hour ago.
Yeah, you did.
You have failed me for the last time.
That's what you said the last time.
I have been too forgiving in the past. Do not fail me again.
Because that'll be the last time.
Yes. No. I don't know. Continue stalking. May I speak with you a moment, my master?
It's just Randy, okay, Chad?
Yes, my master.
And don't kneel, it's weird.
I have grave news. Tammy, I need you to work an extra shift on Saturday.
No.
Then she walked away.
Okay, so?
Our plans to make this station fully operational on Saturday may be jeopardized.
Look, just get someone to take her shift, okay, Chad?
As you wish.
Oh, Chad, I heard you're having some problems with Clint.
Clint is a fool, and I will not tolerate his insolence much longer.
Well, you're gonna have to resolve it. I can't have my day manager and my night manager at each other's throats all the time.
Yes, Emperor.
It's Randy! Randy! I'm not an emperor.
There's a set. There are multiple actors, costumes, a camera, but maybe more, maybe multiple. I don't know, sound, music cues. Like, what was the process of pulling this all together in terms of like personnel, budget? But obviously this is a shoestring, how did you approach this in the beginning?
Well, we definitely hadn't done anything really, this big before. And so it was a new experience for us. It was, luckily in Madison, we had the Willie Street Co-op and they were willing to let us shoot there, which was fantastic. We'd actually done a short film there called Death is My Co-Pilot, where Matt plays the Grim Reaper who is walking around and just harassing me, just sort of annoying me, not really, just sort of like being an ass. Mm-hmm. And they were willing to let us, shoot stuff there during the day. So when we started shooting Chad Vader, we said, "Hey, can we work out something with you where we come in after hours?" Mm-hmm. And that became a running thing that we did for years with them.
Did you know someone there, or was it just like a cool manager who was?
It was just a cool place.
Yeah,
we were just lucky that they were excited about having us do that there. Yeah. And then the rest of it just sort of became, a thing where we found people that would help us shoot it, do the lighting, do the sound. We knew some people who did that kind of thing. We had, a lot of volunteer stuff.
Yeah.
To start
we
with.
Paid no one. We paid not one person.
And the talent, aside from both of you, were people from the Madison improv scene. Is that right?
Improv largely. And maybe some acting, some local actors as well.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So my next question is like, all right, so you put this on a fledgling YouTube and what do you start seeing happening? And B, when do you realize, oh shit, like there's something here. Like we got canceled at Channel 101, but there's more to this on the internet.
Well, YouTube used to be set up where you'd go to the homepage and they would have, was it 10 or 8?
They had like a list of videos that they featured and they gradually pushed them down.
8 or 10 links of these are the best videos on YouTube right now.
Right.
And so if you were featured on the page, you would go at the top of the list.
Mm-hmm.
And then over the next, probably it would take about 3 or 4 days, 5 days for you to get to the bottom of the list and then get bumped off.
Okay.
So, and once you're on the front page of YouTube, you're getting millions of views.
Right.
Because everyone sees that when they go to the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't so much like it is nowadays where it's destination based, where you go to a particular channel you like.
Right.
Back then you would just see what was there.
Or more sadly these days, algorithm based, but that's another story. We'll get into that as we go.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we were fortunate to get featured in that way, and that sort of got a lot of eyes on our material. And as we kept making more, we kept building that audience.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, we already had some success. We went to the New York Television Festival in 2005 with a pilot TV show. We got an agent out of that, and we did some pitching with him before we even took off on YouTube. But when we finally took off on YouTube, that sort of, I could see, the light at the end of the tunnel, where I was at my day job, and I was watching the views go up.
Which was what?
I worked at a metal shop called Custom Metals.
Okay.
Scrubbing antique metal, polishing doorknobs and things.
Okay.
It was, it was
They
a
didn't
job.
ask him to do any of that. He just did that on. I was like,
I was just like, I liked it.
It's good when you can kind of create your own job.
Yeah. Matt, what were you doing at the time for day
I
job?
worked at the university bookstore.
Okay. Yep.
But I remember watching the views go up, and I think when we reached like 100,000 views, which for then was, there was not that many people on YouTube at that point. So nowadays it would be like, oh, I reached 1 million. I'm getting somewhere. Right. But it still doesn't mean as much. But we reached 100,000, and I was watching the views go up, and I thought, I don't think I'm going to have to be at this job much longer. It really started to feel like we were going to get somewhere,
right?
And be able to turn this into a career, which wasn't a thing back then.
Exactly.
People didn't do that. So
my perception was that if you were having success at that time, it's like, oh, this is the gateway to television. There's no way I'm going to make a living on the internet. This will be popular enough where we will get that agent and get a pilot. So like, what happened next in terms of how you thought your career would go there?
We did some pitching in New York and LA because we had a manager in LA and we had an agent in New York. And so we would put together pitches and proposals for shows and go out there and with very little success. And meanwhile, back home, our internet presence and our channel just kept growing and growing, and we kept getting more opportunities directly through there.
Okay.
And so I think inevitably we just decided that we're better off. It's more beneficial to our brand. We didn't call it that back then.
Yes, of course.
To build this internet channel and focus on that.
When you say opportunities, what do you mean by that? Opportunities to make more videos, or opportunity like in terms of getting paid? In terms of making a real living.
Yeah, paid opportunities. We were one of the first channels to get on the YouTube ad share program.
Oh, okay.
They just started offering people.
Right.
That didn't happen until 2008. They didn't start monetizing anybody until 2008. And we actually were, I don't know if we were the first, but we were right in the first people.
We were among the first, definitely.
That's fascinating.
So we were told by, our agent that YouTube was like, we want more of this kind of thing on our website. And so, we were right up there in the front of getting monetized. And it wasn't much. And, we were making more money doing other video jobs for people who saw our work and wanted to hire us to do stuff. And we actually did some very early product placement kind of things. But there's this costume place that I think they had the Vader costume. So we put a little bumper for them.
Great.
Like that was one of the very first times anybody probably did that on YouTube. Huh. And we did a couple of other specific videos that had, that were paid videos, but it was pretty rare at the time. And more we were making videos for other places. Like I remember there was like a web browser or something that was trying to launch.
Super Deluxe.
Was it? Oh, and then Super Deluxe. We made a series for Super Deluxe when they first appeared on the scene.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was just a bunch of little jobs. Chad Vader didn't really make any money, but we were able to take the money from other jobs and keep making it.
Got it.
And keep trying to build.
First, among the first to monetize brands, perhaps savvy for their time, coming to you to do direct integrations. That's fascinating. And then the other thing that you said that I think about a lot is that YouTube, the company, at that time and going forward, made a conscious effort to empower more sophisticated creators, for lack of a better way to, meaning they were like, oh, people can make movies and educational videos and, video essays and video game coverage, whatever it's going to be. We want that. That is different from vlogs or, other internet content that people are not taking seriously. And I feel like that conscious choice was a big moment for YouTube and for the internet, because I think YouTube would be very different if the company didn't support that type of content in the early days. That's my thesis anyway. You guys were on the ground. What do you think about any of that?
I think they definitely did a lot more back then to encourage creators. They gave me a TV.
Nice.
Oh yeah. We made like an ad for Google or something, and we did we get just one TV? Did you take that? You kept that TV.
Yeah, because I did.
What did I get? I think I got like a coffee machine or something.
You just bought a new TV, so you didn't need it.
Oh, that's right.
But yeah, and we did some paid videos for YouTube.
Okay.
And we did that weird Comedy Thunder thing. I don't know if that was a YouTube thing or something else.
Okay.
Sort of, yeah. Basically.
But we got paid for that as well, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there was just lots of paid and branded and ad supported stuff that were coming at us in those days.
Mm-hmm.
And the best part about it back then too is you basically had complete freedom with most of that. Like it wasn't kind of like it is now. I mean, some places I think will still give you freedom, but there was nobody was worried about, trying to control what you're making or having specific things. And nobody tried to do the deals that they do nowadays where it's like, hey, everybody that clicks over into and buys our product, we'll give you a percentage. Right. And, because those kind of deals don't work. That's not how advertising works. It's just like, it's almost like a con basically.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But back then it was, it was a little bit, it was that you had freedom to just keep making stuff that you wanted to make. People would advertise on it almost no matter what. I remember one company was like a shopping website. I don't know what it was, honestly, even though we made a video involving it. But all we did was we made a video where there's a bear outside with a gun and he's shooting at us. And Matt and I are just having a conversation.
We got paid for that?
Yeah. That was a sponsored video.
Oh.
We were shopping online, remember?
Yeah, that online shopping thing. We did a bunch of videos for them.
Yeah.
We did one with my cat.
Was that pre-Amazon? I have no idea. But it was, back when they were trying to launch a shopping website. So.
These were these were videos that ended up on your channel, or were you producing them for other
this was on our channel.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So this is sponsored, integrated.
They're still on our channel. Are you ready to drive to the mall?
Yes, I am ready.
Oh boy. You're not going to believe this.
What?
There's a bear outside.
No, there's not. That's a bear, all right. I guess we're not going to the mall.
It is so inconvenient when a bear comes to your house and traps you.
Wait a second. Bears aren't that fast. I bet we could just outrun him.
You're right. Get ready. Oh boy.
But now.
He's got a gun.
This is so far ahead of its time. Like this is so commonplace now for influencers and creators with large audiences. But like, you are definitely among the first to do this, at least in video form for the internet, which is fascinating. I did not realize all this. And then what the other thing I realized in prepping for today was that I should back up. Aaron, you are in the Vader costume, right?
Mhm.
You are acting the part, but Matt, you are the voice of Vader.
Yes.
Weirdly similar to how it was done in the real Star Wars movies, of course. And then this led to voice work for you, Matt, with like LucasArts and Lucasfilm, video
Yeah.
games, TV.
Yep. I did a session earlier this week.
Wow. You probably can't talk about it, but
I can't talk about it now.
What I'm realizing from your biography is that I own and play many Star Wars games where your voice is probably in them, and that's so. What was that experience like? Okay, you're making a little bit of money. Your people are loving Chad Vader. They're clamoring for more of it, and then what? Someone knocks on your door. Someone emails you and said, "Hello, this is George Lucas, and I would like you to do be Darth Vader."
No, George did not contact me personally.
Okay.
Yet. He did give us an award. He presented us with an award, which is right there.
For video viewers, Aaron is showing this award. This was for like best fan film. Is that right? What is it exactly?
Yeah.
2007. Let's see what it says. It says the George Lucas Selects fan movie, 2007.
Yep.
R2, C3PO on there. It's
beautiful.
A prized possession.
I mean, it's big and it looks heavy.
It is.
I've always admired that Lucas and Co. have sort of empowered their fan film creators instead of DMCAing them all over the place. So that's that's always nice.
Ran into that constantly when we were trying to pitch Chad Vader initially, and everyone was scared. They were scared like Lucasfilm will shut this down. They'll end us. They'll sue us. And we had nothing to lose. So we were like, oh, we'll just make it then. We'll just make it. You guys don't have to fund it. We'll just see what happens. And then we got instead of getting shut down. So Lucasfilm, I think George Lucas could see into the future of the internet, and he thought this is how the legacy of Star Wars will continue to grow and build, and etc.
I mean, that's fascinating because television, broadcast media could not comprehend how to. You have this hit; it's a proven winner, and you're like, "We would like this on TV, please." And they're like, "We don't know how to do that. We can't do that." But on the internet, you can do anything within limits, and you can still do it today. I'm glad that this ethos survives to a degree.
And there's so many people doing it that today it's very difficult to actually get out there anymore because there's just so many people doing it.
Indeed. So how did the voice work come to you, Matt? What was that like?
Boy, to be quite honest, I don't remember how it started. I was contacted with someone to do a PC game.
Okay.
Called Empire at War.
Empire at War. I love that game.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm in that game. Yeah. But I do remember the when the Force Unleashed came about, and back then they would fly me out to San Francisco to record this stuff.
I sense someone far more powerful nearby. Where is your master?
The dark side has clouded your mind. You killed my master years ago.
Then now you will share his fate.
And then eventually they realized, well, we don't need to do that. We can just do this, do what we're doing right now.
Yep.
If I go to a studio and record my stuff, and they can listen in and direct me, and so no one has to travel anywhere. So
great. When you say San Francisco, is that the game developers' offices, or is this? I don't remember where Skywalker.
Skywalker Ranch. Yeah,
that's where they are. Okay, so like, was your mind blown? Are you seeing replica, costumes and props and things in the hallways that are like, oh my god?
Yeah. They got all that stuff. They've got a Yoda fountain.
The Yoda fountain. Yeah, that was amazing.
It was. I'm grateful to have gotten to go there. But I'm glad that I don't have to hop on a plane every time I have to do one of these sessions, because that would just be.
I think it was Force Unleashed, but I don't remember exactly. There's an achievement you can unlock as Darth Vader. You kill a bunch of stormtroopers, and it unlocks the achievement "Worst Day Shift Manager Ever."
Oh yeah.
So they actually put a little nod to Chad Vader Day Shift Manager in there, which was pretty neat.
Spectacular. That is. I love that. All right, so Vader is obviously the hit and the anchor of the channel, but you're doing a lot more sketch comedy. You're continuing what you are passionate about alongside of that.
Yeah.
And something that I remember vividly and got to watch a little bit of in preparation for today was the comments videos. I found that to be so inspired because and even before I got into the industry, I was like, oh, they're talking with their community and making easy videos in order to, I'm using this politely, you know what I mean, pad out the channel while you make the bigger, more involved content. And I was like, that's genius. And the fans loved it too. Where did you, I mean, YouTube comments were notoriously weird and heinous and always have been. Like, where did that come from and how did you develop that? And was it as fun as it looks to do those videos?
Well, yeah, I mean, especially back then, there was nobody, people just said whatever. There was, I mean, people still do that, but like, wow, did they really just say whatever they wanted?
Right.
Because this was a brand new thing and they just felt like, I'm just going to say whatever. And so I think we were inspired by the lunacy of the comments. We were like, we have to incorporate this into what we're doing somehow.
These comments represent the bulk of the comments that you make about Chad Vader.
Your current video sucks. It is not as good as your previous video. Please make more videos like your previous video.
This video is nothing like Star Wars. Star Wars did not have any grocery stores in it. You have failed to make a Star Wars movie.
You guys are gay. You're homos and you're gay all over. How does it feel to be so gay all up in your butthole? When is the next episode of your gay show, gays?
Did you view it as a community or did you view it as like weird strangers mouthing off, you know? Like, were there real fans starting to emerge in the comments or were they gathering elsewhere?
I don't think we engaged directly so much with fans back then, just because that kind of just didn't happen. And also there were so many people who were commenting. It didn't feel like, oh, it's that guy again who says the funny things. You know, that didn't happen so much until some of our later shows that we currently do. But I guess those comments videos were a form of audience engagement.
Yeah, I think we had communities developing, and I always noticed that there was more people who watched the Chad Vader stuff, and they were a specific type of person. And then there was a lot of people who, after they found Chad Vader, it sort of bled over to our other sketch stuff, or even like, you know, beer and board games. Mm-hmm. And they found that and they became attached to that. Mm-hmm. Or Fun Rangers was another series that people liked, which was just absolutely silly. And so we developed a very passionate fan base for the other stuff we were making that wasn't Chad Vader. And that is sort of actually carried over. Like, we still have a lot of those people following us and supporting us and helping us continue to make stuff.
Yep. I'm very eager to ask you about that. Before we take a break, my lingering question is, like, do you recall when YouTube implemented the subscribe button? Were people attaching themselves to your channel, or was it still whatever's on the homepage and whatever your friend sends you a link, you know? Did you start to see actual fans attaching themselves to the channel and coming back for those other videos more and more?
Yeah, we did. I think didn't they do subscribe right at the beginning, or did they roll that out with? Was
it? I don't remember. I should look it up.
Ad sharing.
Yeah.
Or did it coincide with ad sharing? Right.
I'm not sure. I think it existed.
Probably took a couple of years for them to
monetization.
Right.
Yeah, but I know that no one was focused on it. Nobody cared. You know, like and subscribe wasn't a thing at that point.
Yep.
And so subscribers, we didn't know that we should push people subscribing at that point. We just had no idea that was going to become important. We were actually, I think we were the number 15 most subscribed channel. Mm-hmm. For a little while until a lot more people started making stuff on YouTube, but we just didn't know. You know, if I look back and I wish I could tell myself, like, hey, push that subscribe button because you're going to get a lot more people who will come back until YouTube then make the subscribe button completely useless. So,
Totally.
it was like, it would have been helpful for a while.
Yep. Yeah. We'll talk about those changes in a little bit. Why don't we take a quick break, and we'll have more with Aaron and Matt right after this. It's time once again to thank the people that make this very program possible on patreon.com/influencepod. There are a variety of tiers that you can subscribe to get updates on the show, ad-free episodes, Patreon chat, if you will. But there are people at the executive producer tier that contribute $10 or more a month. And I would like to thank those people on this very program. They include Deborah Duberpants, James Dozier, Ken M., Shane, Wesley Cordell, Allie, Bowie Barks, Dominic Kerr, Jerry Duran, Jessica Kybell, Kathy Phillips, Matthew Scott, Duran, and William. Thank you to everyone who's been checking out the Patreon and subscribing there. You can subscribe for free just to get updates when new episodes drop. So it's kind of the central hub for the show going forward. So I hope you'll check it out. That is patreon.com/influencepod. There are a lot of ways to get in touch with me and participate in the show. One of them is by calling 347-871-6548. That is a place where you can leave a voicemail like this very person.
Hey, Matt. This is Evan. I'm calling. I got kind of a nerdy question, but something I was thinking about. You look at something like Spotify, where they say it's going to help all these small artists make a living, and it hasn't, necessarily worked out that way. And in fact, it's sort of made big artists even bigger artists. But there's not really, there's this feeling that it hasn't really done that much for small artists. Do you think that platforms like YouTube do the same thing? Do the digital tools that we have now, have they helped create a class of influencers that wouldn't have existed before? Or have they made famous people even more famous? I'd love to know your answer. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for the call, Evan. This is a topic that I think about, I'm going to say 3 to 4 times an hour every day of my life. It's a fascinating question, and there's a couple pieces to it. I was talking about this recently with another friend. These complaints that Spotify has ruined the music business. I'm not a professional musician, so I don't know what it was like before versus now. But anecdotally, my feeling is that if you even wanted to touch the music business at any scale before the internet, you had to sign your life away to a record label, and that would involve probably taking a very bad deal with gatekeepers that would make or break whether your band or your songs would reach ears or people, human beings. And they would take huge cuts of album sales. So, if a CD costs, if a record or a CD costs the equivalent of $15, $20, the label probably took $13, $15 of that. You've got to pay the record store to they got to make their profit. You got to print and press the thing. And you've got to probably pay the tens of thousands of dollars to even make the record in a professional studio. And so I recall hearing a variety of bands over the years say, hey, we're not the Beatles, we're not Michael Jackson, so we are not in control of our catalog. So we really do not make a lot of money from the songs that we wrote. We make the money from touring, ticket sales, and the merch that we sell at our shows. That, to me, was always like an unfortunate truth about even bands that you love that were like really popular. Like, they must be millionaires. And it's like, no, they're busting their ass to scrape together a living on the road. And that is how the old system worked. The new system is that you get, 1/8 of a penny for every stream that you play on Spotify. And I understand why people are upset about that, but I'm like, by the time a person who bought your album plays it 10 times and you split up the $2 you made on that album sale over the life of that, music ownership, I'm really not sure that was much better, or that was a golden age of revenue for working musicians who were not the 1% that Evan is talking about, your Taylor Swifts or your whatever, your Elvis Presleys or whatever. As to whether social media platforms are making the already famous famouser, they are and they aren't. And by that I mean there are for sure influencers who command audiences that are exponentially larger than anyone or anything in the mainstream that has ever been. That's an interesting question. I guess my benchmarks were always like Elvis and the Beatles, of like there were 3 TV stations and 12 newspapers and 2 record labels. So like chances are if you did anything in 1955, Elvis's face was there looking at you. You would look at it. He would be on the radio. You would hear him. You would see him. And even if you did not care about Elvis, you knew of him. And today we're living in obviously a much different world where Mr. Beast, as of a few days ago, just became the most subscribed YouTube channel on earth, beating out an Indian, YouTube channel, like an aggregator or whatever, T-Series. I think they do like music videos or something. I should know. And, his popularity is unprecedented, but if I walked outside my house right now and asked 10 people who Mr. Beast is, I think most of them would be like, oh yeah, that guy, that YouTube guy. But I don't think any of them would be able to tell me what he does or how he makes a living or anything specific about his content. Whereas if I asked that question about Elvis Presley in 1955, everyone would understand that he was a rock and roll R&B singer. You know what I mean? So I think that it has democratized influence to a staggering degree, in a way that has never been seen in human history. And also simultaneously, we are seeing the established media channels also leveraging these tools because they have to aggrandize the existing celebrities. And you can't fault them, but it also it's annoying to me sometimes so I think about the podcast space and it's like, hey, what do you do for a living? Oh, I make podcasts. And they're like, oh, that's cool. I love podcasts too. And I'm like, oh, cool. What podcasts do you listen to? And it's like, I listen to Smartless and I listen to Conan O'Brien. And it's like, cool. Those are also really fun. And I'm a fan of those people and those comedians. But the reason those podcasts are popular is because the world knows them from a different time and a different medium. They did not build their brand on the internet the way Mr. Beast did. So celebrities are in a way cannibalizing the attention, the available attention of the attention economy. And the Taylor Swifts of the world, to your point, Evan, are super, the ones that are already super famous by worldwide media standards are supercharged by their ability to talk directly with their fans through whatever social, Instagram, whatever it might be. So I think both are at play, but I like the world we're living in now a bit better, despite its problems. We're going to cover those quite a bit on this show as well, as we have historically on this feed. I do like the idea that a guy doing random stunts and playing Minecraft on YouTube could be bigger than NBC. That will always be cooler to me than the gatekeeper model of yesteryear. So, in conclusion, I think the complaints about Spotify are valid, but perhaps overblown, in my humble opinion. Though I have no direct experience with it, and that it's a way for me to communicate my music to people who wouldn't otherwise never have access to it. And that is still a net positive for art, creativity, doing human stuff and having human connections on the internet. That's my take. I don't know if all of that is sound logic or whether I have enough data to back it all up, but thank you for your question. And thank you for the Patreon support, and thank you for the voicemails. If you'd like to be featured on the program, 347-871-6548. Number is in the show notes. It's not a phone that I will answer. It's a voicemail number, and you'll leave a message, and we'll talk. For now, let's get back to Blame Society. We're back with Aaron and Matt from Blame Society, truly one of the pioneers of early internet video and filmmaking, comedy especially. Let's talk beer and board games. I am enthralled by this community and the loyalty that your fans are exhibiting now and supporting you financially and as viewers and as subscribers. And I didn't realize beer and board games goes back quite a ways. So, you're having all this success with Chad Vader. You're doing a bunch of other sketch. And then where does beer and board games fit into the channel during its inception?
That came about because we did like a series called the Comedy Experiments.
Comedy Experiments, yeah.
Okay.
And we just didn't really know if this could be something that could be made into anything.
Okay.
I think we were trying to present these sort of disparate sketch ideas and comedy ideas into like a show.
Yeah.
So I think that was the genesis of Comedy Experiments, and so beer and board games was among those. I'm not sure what the other ones were or how many there were, but it's all still up on our channel somewhere.
That one kind of stuck, and it was just like it started with me and my brother. We played some board games, drank some beer, and cracked wise, and that was kind of the whole point of the show. And I think that comes from, for me at least, wanting to turn things I'm passionate about into stuff I can make videos about and just make it sort of a way of life. And that's what beer and board games became after we continued making it. The following year, we started to make it regularly, and then it just became something that we enjoyed doing so much. So we just decided to keep doing it. Now we've been doing it for 13 years, which we
13,
never
14, something like that.
Yeah, probably expected it to last for a couple of years, but now we've just made it an institution, so much so that there's a convention for it now and everything. So.
Right. Yeah, I have questions about that. In a world that we inhabit now, where D&D improv podcasts are reigning supreme, and this whole like geek culture performed. Again, I feel like you guys were ahead of the curve. Were there other people doing like, hey, we're hanging out playing board games or doing things we normally do, let's turn it into a show? Were you observing other channels doing doing similar things at the time? Were you inspired by anything, or this was just organic?
No, I don't recall anything like that. No.
Yeah.
And that's why we called it a comedy experiment.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. Tabletop definitely came out after we did.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will say that.
And I know Will Wheaton had seen beer and board games, and actually, we almost had him on the show once, but it didn't work out.
And now Tabletop is gone, and we're still here.
Very nice. Your fan base today is so they strike me as so loyal. There's so much fan mail, and they are sending you things. They are asking you to play certain games, to talk about movies, music, TV. Oh, and for listeners, the thing that strikes me about beer and board games is, you're playing some interesting, hot new games that are taking the world by storm, and also the dumbest shit from the 90s and 2000s, licensed, just, Star Trek, Willow, whatever the heck it is.
Yeah, the Jar Jar Binks 3D board game.
Excellent. Thank you. Yep, I got to check that one out. To me, I know this is true because you've worked with Riff Tracks, and also for the Basement show, Welcome to the Basement, you are commentating on film. All of this strikes me as a riff-based comedic. These are riff-based comedic series where you're playing something or you're watching something and you're commentating on it.
Professor Roby will now conduct a class in bad manners or how to get spanked in a hurry.
Oh. In that case, we should hurry.
We'd better get to that spanking.
You can't promise a spanking and not show it,
It's like they're never going to spank.
Yeah.
Mystery Science Theater is my favorite television show of all time. Clearly it's an influence.
They do have similarities, definitely. Yeah. And the intention was kind of comedy out of conversation. Not necessarily writing something, but just, getting a group of interesting people together and see what comes up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that happens in Mirror Board Games and in Welcome to the Basement. That can lead to some really inspired stuff that no one would ever write down.
Right.
And also it's very easy to do because there's really no prep involved. You just get together and see what happens. And
yes. I mean, this is the rise of podcasts in general, I typically put them in a couple buckets. One is like, hey, it's NPR, it's scripted, it's interviews. And the other is like, hey, this is very precise or about a specific topic. And the third is like, I'm just hanging out with my friends and whatever happens. And I listen to those shows because I like hanging out in a parasocial way with the hosts or the guests. And that's what your shows are.
And it's a focused hangout. There's, something that a goal we're trying to accomplish, a movie we're watching, a movie we're discussing, and so that in that way it's got a focus. It's interesting.
Yes.
And it's also sustainable as a series because the reason we sort of basically stopped making sketch comedy is because we needed to make content on a regular basis. And if you're doing sketch comedy, I think you're not going to make, more than 1 or 2 videos a month.
Right.
And depending on, especially when YouTube's monetization was, supporting us, that just wasn't going to do the trick. So we kind of had to figure out a way that we could settle into a rhythm, put out something regularly, get people coming back on a regular basis, and not sort of be haphazard and all over the place, because that wasn't gonna, especially with like a Chad Vader thing, going into shoot for 2 or 3 days all night long over the weekend, and then produce one video in like a month or 2 months or whatever, that there was no way that we could keep doing that without some sort of a budget. And, that's a nebulous thing. You don't, especially when we were doing it, there was nobody who was just going to hand us a budget big enough to sustain that sort of caliber of stuff.
You're reminding me of this sort of sea change of like, because there is so much content out there and the rigor around filmmaking and sketch comedy, in a way, the current model of YouTube and the internet is antithetical to sketch or scripted comedy. And that's kind of a huge loss, because even if people are doing it out of passion, like you said, Aaron, there's almost no way to make money. Like I have friends who are filmmakers and they're like, I made this amazing film. I'm like, oh my God, you've made a television show or you've made a movie. Like, it's so good. What are you going to do with it? I don't know. Film festivals, put it on the internet for free and make $0. And I'm like, the best stuff is not possible anymore, and probably never was. It bums me out. Did you had to reckon with that, I assume. Do you feel sad about that?
I don't. I mean, I think we did that for a long time and had some success at it. And now we've moved on to something else, and that's successful too. So, as long as you keep moving forward, there's no, I don't look at the past and I certainly don't, I don't crave those overnight shoots. I mean, those were hard.
Yep. Yeah, it was grueling. It was definitely grueling. And, to keep doing it for a long time without getting burned out, that's also obviously a massive challenge, and still a challenge to not get burned out, even with the stuff that we're doing, because there's always a lot to keep track of and figure out.
So much of the shows are about fan interaction, fan mail, people sending you stuff to the P.O. box. What is the greatest or weirdest or craziest thing that you've received in the mail from viewers?
Somebody sent me a painting of my dead cat.
Okay.
Which actually was very moving. I still have it. It's in the background of my show, right there.
Okay.
So yeah, that was cool. But I get a lot of like strange memorabilia and things like that. A model of the Jaws boat that's like that big. Someone sent that. It's like, I think you need to have this.
Yeah.
I would say most of the stuff that people send us for beer and board games is weird. I think that's one of the things that they do. And we love all the stuff that we get.
They send a lot of games.
Yeah, they send us a lot of games. We actually, I think, didn't we do a game sponsored an episode once, and the game was called Who Shit in the Cat?
Okay.
So that was a game that they were trying to make. I think we might. I don't know if we still have the game, but I think that's probably the only copy in existence. I don't think it was successfully created. Yeah.
Are there any like dumb licensed games from back in the day that you're like, oh, this is going to suck? And you open it up and you read the rules. You're like, oh my God, this is like a really good like strategy, cooperative, whatever. Like what, any come to mind?
That does happen now and then. We just played a game on the show that's coming out, I think this week. It's a hunting game. It's called Hunting Season, and it's it looks ridiculous. It's like you're a hunter and you go with an ATV and you drive around and you try to track animals and shoot them, and it just it looks low budget. It looks crappy. It looks like one of those really bad hunting video games. But we play when you play it, it's actually surprisingly fun. There's like
it's not a bad game mechanic.
Ratio, when you're tracking the deer, like, do I give up on this animal? How far away am I? Is 100 yards away going to be close enough to hit it with a bow? It's just ridiculous, but it's actually really kind of fun.
And you're like rolling dice to see if you're going to, get the hit, D&D style or something like that.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah. We played that Zaxxon board game. That was actually pretty good.
Right. I saw that, which is based on an 80s arcade game, Zaxxon, right?
Yeah, Zaxxon, right.
It's ridiculous.
It felt like the actual arcade game to some extent.
It was the game itself is pretty simple, but like the artwork was really cool, and they had these little planes that would go up and down, and it's just kind of neat.
Love it. Patreon fan funding merch. I don't know if you guys do merch, but like if you were to create a pie chart of how you make a living these days, no actual numbers, of course, but like what is most important to you? Is it's ad revenue? It's Patreon? What does that look like these days compared to those gigs of yore?
Oh, it's definitely a Patreon. Yeah, that's the most important.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest chunk for sure. And then also, the other ways we make money are people will often donate during live streams, because when we're recording beer and board games, we also stream it to our patrons.
Okay.
And then we did some game sponsorships. We don't do as much of that anymore, but that has been another way. Those are the big ones. We actually, I don't know if you remember Subbable, created by Hank Green.
Yes, I do.
It was the precursor to Patreon.
It was the proto-Patreon.
Proto-Patreon, sure.
And Hank Green was a fan of beer and board games, and so we had met up with him at VidCon frequently and had him and John Green on beer and board games. And then when he started Subbable, we got on board with that. And then Patreon came along, and Hank said, well, this is going to be better than Subbable. So they sort of shunted us over there politely, and we became one of the early adopters of Patreon.
Okay, great.
And that's been the way that we keep doing this now, and for forever, basically.
I know we're coming up on time, but what do your Patreon supporters want from your Patreon? Meaning, are they mostly like, we just want you to keep going, we love the show, here's a buck? Or is it, do they want exclusives? Do they want the stream? What are people most interested in getting from the perks?
I think for the most part, it's just keep making the show. I know we have a few perks, but I will say that with Patreon, in fact, if you're going to start a Patreon yourself, or if you have one, be careful of the physical rewards, all the rewards in general, because if you have too much of your time taken up with fulfilling the rewards, it's going to be harder to make the content. And so I think I think it's important to go into it just saying, I'm just going to make the show and I'll give you updates and stuff here. But, unless you have someone helping you that can send stuff out, I think that is always way more time consuming than you realize it's going to be.
Totally. Yeah, that's good advice. Lastly, tell me about Folkson. It is recently funded for the year on Kickstarter, right? And congrats on that. But Aaron mentioned before we started recording that it's been going for a few years now. So tell our listeners what it is and what they should look forward to.
Yeah, this is the third year of Folkson. It's just sort of like an in-person hangout with fans of the show and us and other people who are performers on the show and people who work on the show. And it's a place to gather and interact with the fans and play games with real people. And we do a live show. So it's sort of a hangout.
Mm-hmm. And this is locally. This is in Madison. Any aspirations or ideas about bringing it to other parts of the country or the world, or is it too much?
I think it's too early to say. I mean, it is growing, and a lot of times it does seem like conventions like this can get bigger. So we'll just kind of have to see how it expands, how we, what we end up wanting to do with it. But right now it's a pretty nice amount of people. We can basically almost get a chance to see or say hi to everybody who comes. And maybe even play some games with them. And also like we did karaoke last year. That was hilarious in most cases. And we do some trivia, which is fun. It's just like a really nice time. So and people, I think that it's kind of an unforgettable experience. It is for me, at least. So
nice. Any future projects? Anything big that you're working on right now that you could share or tease or tee up for us?
I'm working on a project for a large media company that shall remain nameless. That's going to be coming out next year. So we're in the middle of recording that. I'm excited about that.
Cool.
The stuff I've done in the past for the Lego Star Wars series is always really well written, and it's a lot of fun to do, and they do such a good job with it. So I'm proud to be a part of that.
Yep.
And I hope that keeps going for a long time.
Excellent. Aaron, anything on your horizon?
Honestly, like my weekly activities are consistently similar. I'm always, making stuff I'm doing Blame Society and beer and board games, but I'm also doing Game Society Pimps, which is my video game channel.
Okay.
And we do a lot of Twitch streaming. And then I also have another YouTube channel called Junkyard Joust, in which I created a competition with Hot Wheels cars that I used to do when I was a kid, where I would just crash them into each other. And the ones that were sideways and upside down were eliminated, and the other ones would go on to the next round. I turned that into a competition with commentary that I do. And now
great.
People actually send me custom-made vehicles and stuff that they put together that are ridiculous. Somebody turned a car into a pyramid that goes down the track, just like this crazy pyramid that drives down the track and crashes into the other cars, and
I love
sound
this.
effects and everything too.
Amazing.
And that's one of my big passions right now.
Asking for a friend, is it family friendly?
Yes,
can kids
very
get in there too?
family-friendly.
Love it. Okay.
Yep.
Amazing. I will link to both of those channels in the show notes and the YouTube description as well. And final question, which is just a selfish question: what are you streaming on the video game channel? What games are you interested in right now? on the video game
Well,
side?
it's most well known for Skyrim and Fallout, which we've been revisiting a lot because of the Fallout TV show.
It's like having a renaissance right now. Obviously, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's going nuts, and there's a lot of good Fallout stuff out there. So we've been doing a bunch of that. We also play 7 Days to Die. That's a big zombie apocalypse game that we love. And pretty much just we try like anything. We play a lot of new stuff and try new video games.
Awesome. Well, Aaron Yonda, Matt Sloan, Blame Society, thank you so much for being a guest on Influence. It was really awesome to talk to you and meet you and talk about the old days and how it's going for you now. So I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for having us. It was a lot of fun.
We got to go, but thanks again to Matt Sloan and Aaron Yonda for being my guests on Influence this week. I have to say, checked out Aaron's other channels, video game channel and the Hot Wheels channel, Junkyard Joust, and I showed it to my son. He's in the other room. He's watching it now. I was like, you should check this out. He's like, yeah, can I watch Mr. Beast? I was like, yeah, just check out this thing. He's like, I'll be the judge of that. He's like, I'll watch one video. I think he's on his third. So thank you, Aaron, for babysitting my children right now while I complete this episode. You can get in touch with me by sending me an electronic mail. It's like the post office, but you type it into your computer. It turns the message into zeros and ones, sends it to my computer. My computer decodes the zeros and ones back into text. Then I print it out, and then I read it. That email address is influencepod69@gmail.com. Again, influencepod69@gmail.com. I just want to reiterate, it's very hard to get an email address in 2024 that is now already taken. 347-871-6548 is the place that you can call and leave a voicemail and be played on the show. And you can leave comments on the YouTube video. You may be watching it right now. You can leave comments on the Patreon post, and you can send me direct messages on Patreon. If you're a patron, or maybe if you're not, you just send me spam. Send me, lewd photos. Whatever. I'll take it. That is patreon.com/influencepod. For now, I have to go, but I thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk at you next week.